everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be about my Picc line. So loads of you have probably seen in my previous videos that I've had this bandage on, and you're probably thinking, well, what's that on her arm? I have a Picc line. It stands for peripherally inserted central catheter, and it's basically a way that gives me intravenous access. So I have really bad veins, just to start off. I've had so many sickle cell crises over the last 24 years, and I've had multiple cannulas, which is like a short-term version of IV access, that all my veins have blown. So this is in a bigger vein. This Picc line goes in through my superior vena cava, and it goes, basically the line goes up here and stops right at, like, the tip of the catheter stops right at the top of my heart. I'll see if I can show you a picture of what it looks like inside. I'll show you the actual line actually. So this is the line. It's really hard to turn my arm. So this is the beginning of the Picc line, and it just goes out like that. And this is the dressing. This like plastic bit here just basically holds it in place, and that purple bit is the line just going up into my arm. So basically this line goes into my skin, into the vein, into the superior vena cava, and it goes up my arm around here, and the tip of the Picc line stops just above my heart, and it's in the superior vena cava, which I've just said. So basically it's a better way for intravenous access, and it can be kept in for weeks or even months at a time. I got mine done on April 17th, so I've had it a fair while now. The nurses come every week and flush it and change my dressing, okay? And because all of my, like, if you can see my hand there, all those dots is literally where I've had cannulas and where my vein has blown. They looked for my vein with the ultrasound scanner, and it's like all up my arm. They looked for the vein, they looked for my vein with the ultrasound scanner, and the anaesthetist was like, I can't see any sort of smaller veins, I should say, where they'd put like just a normal cannula. She was like, I can't see any smaller veins, and we need this IV access. And I was in hospital and I needed treatment for IV antibiotics, and they weren't able to get like a normal cannula in. And because the nurse that usually puts in these Picc lines, she wasn't here, I ended up getting a central line for like a week, which was not nice. It did not look nice. I can insert a picture as well, but it wasn't cute. A central line only lasts a week, so I needed IV antibiotics longer than a week, so I ended up getting this Picc line put in. And I went down to interventional radiology to get it done in the end, but there's obviously a waiting list, and it's quite a small hospital, and they basically just numb your arm. They give you lidocaine, I believe, and numbs all the area. He looks first with the ultrasound scanner where he's gonna go. He numbs the area, and then they use a scalpel to make like a small incision, and then they go in. But it's all done. Is it all done under ultrasound guidance? From what I believe, it's done on the ultrasound guidance. I can't actually remember, because he used the ultrasound to look for the vein, and then he went in, and then after they did x-rays of my superior vena cava, but it was like a continuous x-ray to make sure that the Picc line was obviously in the right area, and the tip of it was just above my heart. He gave me this Picc line card, just to show people that I have a PICC line and that they can use it and it's fine. It's honestly the best thing I've ever done. It's the best way for IV access, and I don't have to get pricked every time they need IV access, because I always just have it here. And anytime they need bloods, they can take it from this line. So you can take bloods, you can give antibiotics, you can give fluids, you can give any IV medication, and there's like no issues with it. Whereas when I was having cannulas, even if they did get a cannula in, it would last like 2 days and then block, and then maybe the next one would last a day and then block, and it became horrible. And I was having cannulas in like silly places like my thumb and just really awful places, and it just was really horrible. So this is actually my second PICC line. I had one PICC line in March, and then I took it out at the beginning of April, and then like the second week of April I got sick again and I needed IV access, so I had to have another PICC line put in. The doctor who put this PICC line in was like, I want you to really think twice before you take this PICC line out, because obviously it's really hard to get you scheduled in for a PICC line, and because of your situation you will almost always need to have this kind of like extensive form of IV access, because my smaller veins just aren't working anymore. So he said have a think about it, and so I've decided, we've all made a joint decision, that during this lockdown or this crisis, this COVID crisis, I will keep my PICC line in. I don't have continuous IV treatment, so I don't have IV treatment every day, but I've been quite unwell recently, and there's been times when I will have IV treatment for 2 weeks, like IV antibiotics for 2 weeks, and then I might have maybe 2 weeks off, and then I'll be back on IV treatments depending on how regularly I get sick or not. So I've made the conscious decision to keep this PICC line in until the end of this COVID crisis, when things get back to normal, because a lot of services in the NHS have either completely stopped running or are working not at the same capacity they were, so they can't take as many patients and the waiting lists are getting longer. If I took this out and I needed IV access, I might be in a difficult position. So the benefits of me having this in, my IV access is more than likely always guaranteed. So if I did need IV antibiotics at any time during this COVID crisis, which I have needed, I can get them done. Blood tests are much easier now. And also I've had at-home treatment, so the nurses have been coming to my house to give me IV antibiotics or IV fluids or whatever it is that I need. So I've been really fortunate in that way. So it just meant that I didn't have to spend that time in hospital, obviously exposed to the risks of COVID, which has been really reassuring for me actually. The only like con I would say to having a PICC line is the risk of infection, and I know it's something that loads of people are going to say in the comments, and loads of people with sickle cell or with other conditions are going to be like, oh, but you could get an infection, you could get this. I just like to educate everyone that no matter what type of IV access you have, even if it's a normal cannula, like an everyday cannula that you could get an infection from that, and you can get a blood infection that could lead to septic shock from a normal cannula. Obviously the PICC line infection would be more problematic because this PICC line is going straight to my heart, but you can get an infection from any type of IV access. It's breaking skin and it's direct access to your bloodstream, so you know, either way there's a risk. But I mean that to minimize the risk, you need to make sure you have good hand hygiene when dealing with the PICC line. I don't touch the PICC line anyway, because I'm not doing anything with it. I'm not giving myself medication at the moment or anything, and I don't give myself medication. The nurses would come and do that. And second of all, any nurse that touches this PICC line or manages this PICC line should be doing good infection control. So they should be using an aseptic technique to clean your PICC line and to flush the PICC line and to change your dressing. And as long as those steps are used, there should be really no issue. As long as the nurse maintains aseptic technique and follows all the infection control procedures, there's no reason that your PICC line should get infected. Obviously there are some rare cases where no matter what has been put in place, infections do occur, but to really like minimize the risk involved in infections, that's what should be done. So I've made that like educated, conscious decision to keep this in for now, and to be honest with you, I'm so happy with it. But when things get back to normal, then I'd probably have to take it out, and it would be a case of just having to deal with getting IV access each time, or deal with being stabbed multiple times again. A PICC line for my situation isn't a long-term thing because sickle cell is so intermittent, so it's very hard to justify having a PICC line for, you know, the rest for 18 months. It would be very hard for me to justify that because I don't need IV access all the time, if that makes sense. It's just during this COVID crisis, the opportunity to get IV access is diminished because staff are so busy working with other emergencies. So I have this constant access which allows me whenever I do need it to get it. But because sickle cell, I could be sick tomorrow and then not get sick again until 2 years. I mean, that hasn't happened to me yet, but it happens to some people. But right now I've been sick like every month, every 2 weeks. It's been like quite continuous, which is why they've decided to keep the PICC line in over the COVID period. So yeah, that is everything about my PICC line. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and yeah, you now know what this thing is on my arm. I don't know when it's coming out because I don't know when COVID is gonna take a seat. But thanks so much for watching, guys. Bye.